Yeah, I know I'm corny as fuck, but just listen up. This video is all about getting your mind unstuck, how to save us from AI. Yeah, I'll get to the point. Because when you learn this shit, it'll feel like you just smoked a joint. Okay, last time we talked about the placebo effect. Now it's agent networks, AI, and communication on deck. Because the problems that are going on in the world today are not just going to get up and walk the fuck away. So we got to learn with our minds and learn with our hearts. Because the ones that are learning the most, they seem like they've been crooked from the start. Yeah, I can say that shit, right? It's just a fucking song. I'm just making you laugh and you're just playing along. Okay, what the fuck does this have to do with this? Just listen to me and the beat you won't miss. You can think of things in the world as dots on a map. Everything you think of, from events to facts, from people and places and ideas and whatever, it's all represented as data, and that's really clever. Our brains operate in a similar way. Message passing between neurons, they say what they say. You can see how our brains are similar to prompt chains. That's what OpenAI has figured out. O3 Mini is the name. It's metacognition. It's just thinking about thinking. And if you know how to use math to do that faster, you can learn the right way to think about thinking without even blinking. You just need a lot of money and a lot of compute and a lot of storage and a lot of you to train the models to do what they do. So think about it. What are they giving to you? They're giving us really cool fucking shit like personalized apps. But have you really thought about what you're giving back? You're giving up your identity. That's who you are. And how far do you think they're going to take it? And can you go that far? So listen up to me as I say what I say. I'm just saying what I'm saying. And I think it should be that way. So in this video, I'm going to draw out how AI networks, agents, neurons, brains, and people work, kinda, if I can remember that. Because it's really just a system of passing messages. So that's what we'll learn. And that's really a pun because that's the entire point of my app. It's to learn the best way to communicate where you choose how that happens. I can't think of a fucking word right now. So I'll just get back to the whiteboard somehow. Networks, AI, agents, neurons, people, and companies. These are all just dots on a map, and they pass messages from one thing to one thing. Messages are data, and that's also kind of considered free speech. And that's something that we need to pay attention to if you listen to me. Once we understand how messages are passed, we understand the statistical nature of our behavior. That shapes our future based on our past. So I'm going to try to describe how to save us from AI, getting back to the point without going awry. Like I said, last time we talked about the placebo effect. Now it's time to get agent networks, AI, and communication in check. Probably going to leave this stuff right here and erase this stuff. Rearrange it a bit. Shouldn't be too tough. Okay, let me write this. Actually, I'm just going to start talking and I'll find my sentence along the way. Michael Scott / Stephen Hawking. All right. Okay, guys. All right. Let me stop it. Okay, guys. All right. That's perfect. Okay, so let me fix this. I'm not sure how this is going to look. Whoa, that is weird. Okay, cool. Yeah, last time we talked about the placebo effect, and my point there was, hey, we're learning some new stuff in neuroscience over the past 20 years, that's saying that the placebo effect it has a real impact on people. And if we're trying to do good, we want to have a positive impact. We have this technology that we figured out, or this thing that we figured out called the placebo effect. Maybe we can use that in a good way that's also ethical. The ethical part I bring up because the placebo effect comes from basically lying to someone. I don't want to get too much into this, but it's like you're giving them, right, in a controlled medicine trial, you're giving them a fake like sugar pill and you're telling them that, I think this is how it works, I could be wrong. You're telling them that it's going to have this effect on them, and then you just telling them actually kind of has that effect. I was actually talking to someone about this. That person also kind of went down this rabbit hole about consciousness and placebo effect and our brains. And I'm not sure if they related it to AI, but the placebo effect we're learning is like real. And that person did one of these three things in order to not necessarily give away their identity. But they either did, taught meditation through yoga, or that's an example of, kind of a placebo effect. That's what I was trying to argue last time about meditation, is kind of like a placebo effect that you bring onto yourself to intentionally change the way that you think. But yeah, that's a good link back to the point of linking these two. And that is that, how we're already using the placebo effect for good through meditation and other things, like a lot of stuff, just saying to believe in yourself, affirmations, things like potentially natural medicines, like natural remedies, potentially other things like meditation, like acupuncture, or lying on a bed of nails, like a lot of religious things. So, nothing against whatever you believe. I really am pretty open there. I'll just say that. But this is what we talked about last time. And now I want to talk about more software stuff. So obviously building a software system, you could call it a startup, you could call it a app, you could call it just a software architecture design. I'm just building a bunch of software with these things in mind. I think of it like a art project, to be honest. I heard Jack Dorsey say one time that you're building something that you want to see in the world, and you're making the bet that other people want the same thing. And so what that really means, and that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about today, is that you're building a system of message passing by building software, because all software is passing data and transforming data. Even the software itself is data. It is a form of a message. So if you think about it like that, I think that's a good way to think about it. So what companies are, remember I said everything is like dots on a map. What did I mean by that? I'm gonna rewrite this. Neurons, companies, people, everything. I actually have what I wanted to draw right here already. It's just not drawn really clearly because I didn't make space for it. Okay, so when I say that all of these things are dots on a map, you can literally think of anything like a dot on a map. You can think of an idea as a dot of a map, which is kind of complex, but you can think of a room as a dot on a map, like in relation to other rooms, in relation to other dots in the building, like, we don't have a pool, but if you had a pool, humble brag, humble flex, just kidding. I wish I had a pool, maybe that's why I thought of it. But even that, okay, I was thinking about, this is a good example, if you can follow this, and that's also an example. Damn! Okay, it's easy to think of how to think of a room as a dot on a map, like physical space, because that's literally what maps are. In 2 dimensions, a flat surface. A room, if you think of it as a dot on a map, you think of it in 3 dimensions. An idea, you can think of in any number of dimensions. And at each point, so how do you think of an idea as a dot on a map? I think it's also important to put ideas right here as one of the things that can be a dot on a map. This is how it works. It's like you think of stuff. Oh wait, I'll use that example that I just gave. So I thought of, physical space. I thought of my room, and then I was like, what could my room be in relation to explain this concept? And my brain just went to pool for some reason. I don't have a pool in my building, unfortunately, but my brain went from the room neuron, and it made a connection to a pool neuron. And that's probably because I was just talking about pools with someone last night, gym pools, but not building pools. But I was just talking about pools last night. That's probably the main reason. I kind of wish I had a pool, right? And yeah, so the pool neuron is connected in some way to the room neuron, and those can be thought of as dots on a map. And we know, like most people know, that the idea is that there's a specific neuron or group of neurons that represents a concept, like a room, or like my room, or like pool. And so you think of those things like dots on a map, like my room, pool. There's a bias for recency. So I was just thinking about pool. So these 2 nodes are, strongly connected. What I think the placebo effect is a way that we figured out how to redirect the energy and resources of certain dots on a map so that there's more activity in those dots, and you can basically route the energy and resources to specific dots based on your understanding of how those dots often work together and interact. And basically, so if you think of everything as a dot, everything in the world, dude, like just think of it as a dot and think about how it relates to everything else. That's when you get, that's what all software is kind of heading towards. It's like literally what it is a model of reality. And that's how our brains model reality in terms of, relationships of different things and how strong those relationships are. We have a lot of biases for how we think, how those thoughts are actually things themselves, how you can think of companies as ways to shape the allocation of resources based on supply and demand to specific dots on some map that they care about. But the reason this is important, let's get to it. Okay, sorry. How to save from AI? Number one is we have to look at the world in this way, I think. One interesting thing about this is it's really hard to understand. It's hard to talk about ideas. That's why I think there's a saying that's like, lower people talk about whatever things, higher people talk about other people, and then the best people talk about ideas or something like that, which is just, it's a very crude generalization and categorization of people, and I don't even know if I told it right. But talking about thinking and really low-level concepts, or I don't know, actually really abstract concepts. Man, this is so meta. Yeah. Talking about that is hard, but I think that we have to understand how to think like that. And I think the reason it's important is because that's how the world works. And a lot of the problems that we have in the world today, I think, are due to a system of communicating in a way that centralizes control over the way that we're communicating. And there are other efforts around that are, obviously aware of that. And a lot of people are kind of catching on because they feel it. Jack Dorsey mentioned, I like Jack Dorsey. He mentioned we feel like we're being programmed. And that's literally, I think, what is happening, because really smart people, and it's not like they're doing something inherently malicious. I'm not saying that. I'm actually trying to advocate for, I should figure out how to put that into, I need to change this, like how to save us from AI, but like it's also through technology, I think. That's my idea, and that's what I want to try to communicate. But I think that the point for this video is we should think of things like dots on a map. I'm gonna go through real quick in the last few minutes, just like exactly examples on that, and hopefully it kind of makes sense. But let's talk about concrete examples. And let's start with motivation. I think a lot of my subscribers are interested in tech, but also interested in productivity and how to just like be productive and do what they say they want to do. And to be honest, guys, I am the worst at that. That's literally why I'm trying to make the system. But okay, let's talk about motivation. How can we think of that like a dot, right? Okay, this is going to be so deep, but motivation is a thing that's part of you, right? Like you feel motivated. And since we are basically our brains, you can think of motivation as something that happens in your brain. Okay, so that's how it's connected to neurons. It's also connected to meditation. And I'll just explain this. So motivation from a neuron perspective it has a lot of different facets now I'm thinking about it. And I'm trying to reduce this explanation down to something coherent. Usually you want things. And if you want them bad enough, you're motivated to take an action, to set a goal, whether you are conscious of that goal or not, and act in a way that increases the likelihood that you will achieve that goal. That is literally how pretty much all of these things work. So neurons basically have a natural tendency to want to survive and reproduce, pretty much, I think. That's why like overactivation of that is cancer. That's why what fires together wires together, because it's stronger. That's why it's like you can think of each neuron as an entity, a dot on a map, and it wants to survive as a dot on a map and basically pass down its genes, just evolutionarily. Companies are like that too, right? They have like a goal. They have some motivation to achieve that goal. The people are motivated and they work together and iterate, and they want to survive and pretty much spread, right? That's what the goal of a company is. How is it connected to meditation? And neurons. How I think about that connection and relationship there is the idea that if you have a goal to not even have a goal, and this is going to be really weird to think about. If you have a goal to not even have a goal, you can't really do that because your brain like almost always has a goal. So you have to set like a really meaningless goal, I feel like. like, just being aware of your thoughts and stuff. And by doing that and just focusing on some awareness of one thing potentially, or like focusing your attention, you, I think, free up other neurons to kind of just work on their goals and resolve stuff subconsciously in harmony with your conscious mind, because you're broadcasting the messages to other neurons from your executive part of the brain that are, kind of calming in many times, but also really just like self-reflective. And I think that's what allows your neurons to kind of resolve. And I think I need to try to bring it back to what is the point of this video. How to save us from AI? It's like, first of all, we have to understand how different things are just different message passing systems. When we think of stuff like that, then we think of how much our brains and all their biases are just part of that larger system, and everything is a dot on the same map, then we can think of better ways to write software, because software is one of the biggest drivers of connecting people, whether that's through transactions or tools just for fun, Netflix, whatever. I'm not gonna name companies, but Netflix. That's what I know, right? And I know. I don't really know too much about neuroscience other than just like, what research I've done. I think it's from believable people. But if we think of stuff in the world and our problems and each other and our behaviors and thoughts and goals and relationships and things we care about, things we really care about, kind of like dots on a map, and just stepping back and being able to look at the things we care about like dots on a map, and how the things we care about relate to other dots on a map. For example, how does your behavior or your goals relate to other, really influential dots like companies and all the world issues and relationships to close people? Those all influence each other. And it's figuring out how those dots on a map interact with each other through other dots, making those connections. I think we can, write and understand software that is going to work better for all of us. I think, this is a random feeling, but I think that like we need to figure this out. And pretty much who I am is just somebody who went through a lot of stuff, got some familiarity with tech and data, which I love, is also super interested in art and expression and being an individual and living your best life, all that kind of stuff. That's why I care about these things. And the How to Save Us from AI thing is obviously just like a title thing, but it is one of the issues that I feel like I want to bring to the dots on the map that are closely related to, the dots that I care about. And I think not just the dots that I care about, but I think the right dots. So yeah, literally just talking about dots. I hope you guys get this. I want to watch this, and like, it might be terrible, but oh my God, dude. Okay. I think, hopefully the right people will get it. What should I talk about next time? So maybe I'll talk about, I think these are some fundamental concepts to just think about how I think of thinking, and everything is like kind of like a dot, and it has relationships to other dots. What the real term for this is entities. We model entities in software, and it's becoming the case that those entities in software and digital representation have a lot of value to the system as a whole, and society and ourselves and companies and a lot of stuff. So we want to try to direct that value in the way that is good for the people that need it, and in a way that we can all, on average, agree on, and something that really works for us and is going to be sustainable. So entities, connection between those entities, kind of allocating resources, what we should build, what we need to focus on, how to think of the world. That's what this video was about. I think what I'm going to do is just write down a bunch of topics and make like a video on one specific topic. I still need to answer you guys questions about that you sent me on Instagram. Most of the people that send me questions on Instagram are the real basic questions, like, how much is my rent? Or do I still work at whatever company? Or like, am I working on a startup? So a lot of those I do want to get to, because they are basic questions, but this is really what I want to talk about, because that's the dots that I really value. But I understand that I need to communicate. I need to pass messages from my dot to other people in a way that they understand. I know this is really hard to understand, but that's also why I like to think of this stuff as kind of like art, because I'm just expressing a message that's coming through me. But I'm trying to do it in a way that it's good for all the other dots. Yeah. Okay, so hope you guys get that. Like, comment, subscribe.